Hello and welcome. Today's episode of Analyzing Literature, featuring me, Mr. Miniman, will be talking about theme. When you're on the hunt for themes in a book, there are a few things to keep in mind. The first, since all themes involve the protagonist, examine conflicts the protagonist faces. Whatever the main conflict is, there's probably a theme involved in there somewhere. Second, as the book goes on, notice changes the protagonist undergoes. Whatever problem the protagonist faces in most books will involve the protagonist adapting and changing and becoming hopefully a better person. So look at the way the protagonist changes and see if that helps you figure out what a theme might be. Another one is look at big ideas the author might be communicating about society or the world. So think bigger. What are the problems in society that the book might be attacking? Even if it's a fantasy book or a science fiction book, most of the problems in those books are also problems in our real world. Another thing to do while you read is to keep some of the most used themes in literature in mind, because there's a good chance that your book will have one of these themes in it somewhere. So some of these themes are rite of passage or coming of age, so that involves a young character gaining understanding about the world, maturing. Perseverance, so struggling through something difficult. Friendship, family, love, man against nature. Morality, which is a person's understanding of right and wrong. The effects of technology, power and corruption, and the way those two things are related. Mortality, which is different from morality. Morality is the understanding of right and wrong. Mortality is the understanding of death and the understanding that you yourself will someday die. And sacrifice. Now, there are many, 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 many more common themes in literature, but that's basically all I could fit on this page. So those are some of the common ones, but think of other really common themes and see if any of them line up with your book. So here's the passage I'm going to look at in this video. It's the famous passage in To Kill a Mockingbird when Atticus teaches Scout about empathy. He says, "Something wrong, Scout? I told Atticus I didn't feel very well and didn't think I'd go to school anymore if it was all right with him." Atticus sat down in the swing and crossed his legs. His fingers wandered to his watch pocket. He said that was the only way he could think. He waited in amiable silence, and I sought to reinforce my position. "You never went to school, and you do all right, so I'll just stay home too. You can teach me like Granddaddy taught you and Uncle Jack." "No, I can't," said Atticus. "I have to make a living. Besides, they'd put me in jail if I kept you at home. Dose of magnesia for you tonight and school tomorrow." "I'm feeling all right, really." "Thought so. Now what's the matter?" Bit by bit, I told him the day's misfortunes. "And she said you taught me all wrong, so we can't ever read any more, ever. Please don't send me back. Please, sir." Atticus stood up and walked to the end of the porch. When he completed his examination of the wisteria vine, he strolled back to me. "First of all," he said, "if you can learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view." "Sir?" "Until you climb into his skin and walk around in it." Atticus said I had learned many things today, and Miss Caroline had learned several things herself. She had learned not to hand something to a Cunningham, for one thing, but if Walter and I had put ourselves in her shoes, we'd have seen that it was an honest mistake on her part. We could not expect her to learn all Macomb's ways in one day, and we could not hold her responsible when she knew no better. So basically what's happening in this scene is that Atticus is showing Scout what empathy is. He doesn't use that word, but he uses this phrase. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. So empathy is the idea that you can feel another person's pain, you can feel another person's situation. Not just sympathize with it, but feel it yourself. And that's what Atticus is trying to communicate to her here. So here's my reader's notebook entry. Label and date, got it. Don't summarize, I didn't. Quote and cite the text, I did it. And it's more than 5 sentences, so I got at least 5 sentences. So this is what I said. One possible main theme of To Kill a Mockingbird is the importance of empathy. I put that in a box to make it stick out. You don't have to do that, but it might make it easier for whoever's looking at your reader's notebook to see the theme. Based on her interaction with Walter Cunningham, Scout, like most 6-year-olds, lacks empathy. Her father Atticus takes this moment to teach that concept to Scout and encourage her to use it. He never uses the word empathy, but he does say, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it, page 33. Scout hadn't done this, and as a result, she beat up on poor, starving Walter Cunningham. Atticus is doing what all good parents do, taking a moment of bad behavior and turning it into an opportunity to learn something. A couple things to note here. One, I started with a sentence that gives an overall main idea of this entry. I highlighted the first part of the 4th sentence to show you that you can count a sentence if it has an idea, even if it's the sentence with the quote. If it has an idea in it of your own, then that can count as a sentence. But if the sentence had started here, then that shouldn't really count because none of my ideas are in that sentence. I'm really just quoting. I also directly analyzed the quote and what Atticus is doing when he says that quote. Atticus is trying to teach Scout. He's taking a moment and turning it into an opportunity to learn something. So I'm not just providing the quote and then moving on. I'm actually explaining the purpose of the quote and what Harper Lee is trying to do with it. All right. Thank you very much. See you next time. Midman out.